Sale type affects your price, timeline, and risk. Here are the 4 types of sales you need to know. Home sale type 1, standard sales. A standard sale is the most typical type of sale that you think of when you're purchasing a home. It's between a seller and a buyer. You're negotiating usually one-on-one, or between an investor and a buyer. Again, one-on-one, direct communication somewhat between the listing agent and the buyer agent. Everybody gets to know a little bit more transparency about the home. They may have more to share if they've lived there. If it's an investor, they may not be able to tell you, but generally, these types of sales are the easiest, they're the quickest, there's less standing in the way. Usually you have a direct line of sight to what the seller is looking for, so you can appeal to them with your offer. And in these home sales, typically the seller is motivated to make the most money on their purchase. The second type of home sale is a short sale. Now short sales happen when the seller owes more to the bank than they can afford to sell it for. That means they need to ask for permission from the bank to short them the amount owed. The bank is a third party who is involved in the process from start to finish. They're going to be approving the price, they're going to be approving the timeline, they're going to be approving the appraisal value. Now, short sales are kind of a misnomer as well. Short sales are not short. They can take anywhere from 30 days to get all of that bank approval to, I've seen in the past, now when they were new, 2005, 2007, it was a very rough process. It could take up to a year to get this approved. Now, 2025, 2026, we should not be looking anywhere near those timelines. Typically, I would expect 30 to 60 days though, maybe 90 days. And here's the catch. Because the bank is involved, they are not going to let that property go for less than they deem market value. That means they can extend the timeline to get another appraisal, hoping that that value has increased since you've been under contract. So, great way to get a deal. Usually the seller knows that there's either work to be done at the house or they've been doing their best to maintain it. Now you can find these types of homes in all kinds of conditions. Sometimes you get lucky and the seller pulled out a lot of equity to improve the home and then couldn't make the payments, and that's why they're negotiating with the bank to let it go for less than they owe. Sometimes they took the money out and did something else with it and it did not go back into the house. So there could be some somewhat variable conditions. You just got to go in, take a close look, and be very careful when it comes to working with your mortgage lender about condition, making sure that it's going to meet their requirements to fund your loan. The third type of sale is foreclosures, otherwise known as real estate owned or bank owned properties. This occurs when the previous seller has lost the house. It has gone through the repossession process. The foreclosure process involves the bank taking back ownership of the home and then placing it on the market to sell to a new buyer. Now, the cool part about foreclosures is you can get a wide variety of conditions as well. There are some banks that do a great job at going in and refurbishing the property, making sure it has fresh paint, making sure the roof is in good condition, appliances are all working, new carpet sometimes. You can get a really great deal as a foreclosure. But there's also the other end of the spectrum. Some banks are selling the property for a very competitive price because it needs a lot of work. And it's really going to heavily depend on the type of financing that you have, because some types of mortgages are way more selective about condition than others. For example, FHA, you're going to make sure you don't have holes in the walls, missing flooring, all the appliances and systems need to be in good working order. You can't have a hole in the ceiling, or you can't need little repairs that you try to do yourself. When you are under contract, those repairs must be made by licensed professionals. It can't be Harry homeowner just trying to go in and get it done before they purchase. It has to be licensed. We have to show receipts. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, the bank won't let you go in and make any repairs. A lot of those sales are as is, where is. What you see is what you need to be able to purchase. So because a bank is involved in a foreclosure, it's going to take anywhere from 30 to 60 days to get their approval and get all of the whole process going and get your loan closed. Not a terrible process, but it is heavily dependent upon your loan type and how many repairs the property is going to need. Type 4 is auctions. These I typically recommend only for the savvy investors that have cash at hand, they have crews, or they have the knowledge to be able to fix those properties up themselves, because auction properties are the worst of the worst. These are the properties that they can't get full market value or even close to market value. So they're literally auctioning it off to the highest bidder. Typically, those bids involve putting down a 1 to 2% auction bid premium, meaning 1 to 2% of the anticipated opening bid price you need to be able to put down as cash to be even eligible to bid. And once your bid is accepted, you need to either have the financing lined up, which usually involves hard money because you are looking again at the worst of the properties, and they're not going to qualify for FHA. They may not even qualify for a conventional loan, which is a lot easier to get, but still has limits. Understanding that there are different types of sales early in the process will save you time, energy, and money. Ask Genna with the Milestone team at Hyatt & Company Real Estate. You can search all of the different sales types and filter for each individual kind using my website, homemilestone.com. Save this so you don't forget, and follow for more Maryland home buyer tips.